Hello! How are you doing? Oh my goodness, I forgot to button my shirt up. Terrible. I'll edit that out of this video. Here we go. Tomorrow's Crazy Day here in the United States. It'll be November the 5th. Great book. My copy keeps falling apart. I got a couple copies. Back in the back, right before, actually during the time of relativity started becoming popularized. It's called Gravitational and Electromagnetic Analogy by Oliver Heaviside. It's actually a very simple approach to explaining gravity that had nothing to do with quantum. And of course, I've challenged people, and nobody's actually taken me up on the challenge because it's impossible. There's nothing you could point to in nature and call it quantum. And say, well, what about quantum computers? Well, they're strictly electrical devices. I know how a quantum computer works. We call it quantum. You know, I got a microwave in the kitchen there, and I could call it a quantum heating device, but that doesn't give reification or validation to the term quantum. So, well, what about the electrons? You said before the electrons don't exist. I said, well, I've actually said that, but what I was doing is quoting Nikola Tesla specifically, who said that electrons don't exist. I've mentioned that in several different videos, but they don't. I said, well, you know, obviously electrons do exist because we have electron microscopes. I said, well, we can simplify that. There's no such thing as an electron particle. I mean, the principle is the same. There's certainly not trillions and trillions of electrons flowing through the power lines in your backyard or front yard. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. Also, too, you can never explain wireless power induction. I've actually challenged these people, even including a couple of PhDs, which doesn't mean anything. PhD stands for piled high deeper. This is, of course, fundamentally a person who's been indoctrinated into academia. Academia, of course, is all about peer review and mutual agreement upon nonsense. They all work as one, kind of like a bunch of cars on the tracks, train tracks. What it is, though, is an electrostatic reflectance imager. Non-metallic subjects actually have to go into a gold sputter chamber to get covered in gold. But that's a matter for another discussion. We're going to talk about quantum and talk about nature versus quantum, because natural order is really simple. Nikola Tesla, the only time that he foams with the mouth is this idea that space is something. Academia and so-called scientists, and there used to be real scientists, and there still are some, but not many. What they are, of course, are mathematicians. My doctor, you know, spent an enormous amount of money, you know, becoming a medical professional. She saw how fundamentally, truly evil that industry is, and she decided to leave it. There's a lot of people, I think they have a sheep mentality, and of course they're brainwashed by public school systems specifically. You know, it's all about getting you to believe in something, you know, believe in the authority. In a formal debate, there's no such thing as an authority. I'd like to actually go over quantum. And a lot of us, you know, the only good thing to come out of the horrible past 4 years is a lot of people that were intellectual dullards, to be very, very mild, figured out that trusting in the experts, you know, was bad. You know, a lot of bad things have come about by people trusting in experts. There's no such thing as an authority in a formal debate. The doctors and scientists that you think are infallible, well, they have a PhD hanging, well, this doesn't actually mean anything. If I can actually destroy any debate on the topic of a few different things that I'm an expert on, like anatta and original Buddhism, monistic metaphysics, field theory, quantum, then, you know, I wonder who the expert is, you know, the fat bald tattooed guy or the guy with the PhD. One thing I've told people to check out, and there's like 100 copies of it on YouTube, and it's like 7 minutes and 20 seconds long. Won't take you that long. You don't have to watch all of it. You only have to watch like the first 4 minutes. So you totally get the picture. This is a guy they consider to be God. His name is Richard Feynman. He's not with us anymore. And just type in, on YouTube search, type in Feynman explains magnetism. Hundreds of copies of the exact same video. He's sitting in a high back chair. He's, got his legs very amply crossed, and there's the academician. He's got his hands squeezed together like a praying mantis. And he's asked a simple question, not a trick question or a loaded question, what magnetism is. And he dodges and squirms and wiggles like a frog on a hot plate, and he never answers the question, and he talks about an old lady slipping on the ice. And this is not my opinion. This is the guy, even though he's not with us anymore, and I've got his books and most of his articles. This is the guy that people point to as the expert. Fundamental founder of building up the brick house that is quantum. They looked at this guy like a god, and he doesn't understand anything. He would have looked a whole lot smarter if he said, that's a really important, deep question. I wish I knew the answer to it. I'd like to know. I continue to seek, but I do not know. But he doesn't. He wiggles and squirms, and he pontificates, and, it's absolutely ridiculous. So, if you can't destroy a debate on a specific topic, then you're certainly not an expert at it. And it doesn't matter if you got a PhD hanging on the wall behind you or not. Believe it or not, whatever you think of me, I certainly don't care. But the fat, bald, tattooed guy in this video actually does know the origins of the term quantum. By the way, in the description of this video, as well as countless others, I have a one-page complete obliteration of the term quantum. Complete obliteration of it. I don't need to go all over that again, but I do know the origins of the term quantum, how it's used, why it's used, when it became popularized, and who popularized it. Of course, the very person who popularized the term quantum was Leonard Trollin, who is a, quote, researcher into psychical research and carried out experiments in telepathy. This is a Rational Science founder, the guy who popularized quantum. Nature magazine, 29 October 1926. Instead of light quantum, one should consider a new type of atom, which we call a photon. Now, the term quantum is from das Lichtquant, and a reference to a quantity. Now, I got this neat little digital caliper over here, which I use all the time for all sorts of neat things. And of course, it measures things both digitally and analog along the scale here. Something that is a quantity is an agreed upon standard of measurement, like a mile, a gram, an inch, a pound, a second, a meter, a volt, a millimeter. All of these things are standards of measure. And the term quantum, these are not things in nature, because there's no such thing as a gram, an ounce of, of what? A gram of what? A mile of what? A pound of what? A second of what? A smallest unit of energy, discrete energy packet, and this is where they derived. Of course, there's no such thing as a photon either. Nikola Tesla said that. Tesla accurately and logically said that light was a sound wave in the ether. Of course, the medium of sound is the air. The medium of light, which is a compound field circuit, that medium, of course, is the ether. There's no such thing as a photon any more than there's any such thing as an electron. People say, well, we have all sorts of equations, and of course, electricity does exist. Well, that's not in question. The fact that you've actually rationalized and conceptualized, little ball bearings flowing through the power lines in enormous numbers down the backyard of your house, and the power lines is completely irrational. It's just antithetical to Occam's razor and simplicity of natura naturans, which is just a fancy word of way of saying Mother Nature. Here's Walter Russell's quote: "Nothing is more fantastical and a travesty of how nature works than is that of quantum theory. Its very basis has no relationship to reality." I'm going to put this to you very simply, and before, compounding this video a little further, but not deeper, deeper into, trying to make anybody's, brain get squeezed and trying to, decipher it as what that which I'm saying is that you cannot postulate a picture of nature that even approaches the absurdity of what these people who write all sorts of books on the matter, and I've got most of these books. I'm the furthest thing from an anti-intellectual. I myself have literally, and people have seen my collection, I got 14 terabytes of PDF books. My house is a veritable library. The reason why, there's a few reasons. Obviously, I'm fat and I have a strange personality. Not a bad one. Is I spent my time in search of the deep answers while everybody else was off looking for a wife and a girlfriend. I was actually researching the secrets of the universe, and you draw the inevitable conclusion by using simple logic and rationality that the quantum Jabberwocky poppycock, as I humorously like to refer to it, is completely unresembling that of nature itself. You can't complicate nature in the obtuse, irrational, and nonsensical way that they've done it. Nature cannot work that way, and that's not my opinion. It cannot work that way. It breaks every paradigm of simplicity. And to say simplicity in some ancient languages is no different than saying nature itself. Nature is simplicity, and simplicity is natura naturans. Natural order. You know, it doesn't require an old guy with a beard, sky daddy with a beard up in the clouds, you know, handing out, you know, rules and dictates to Moses. You know, it doesn't require, you know, that's completely illogical and irrational as well. And these people that actually make up the absurdity will, you know, laugh and point their finger at, you know, sky daddy religious Jabberwocky. But they themselves create Jabberwocky. Of course, I assume you know what the reference to Jabberwocky is. It's basically nonsense. It's blathering, irrational, wackadoodle nonsense, like blah, 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 you know, that kind of level of crazy. They make fun of that, which is accurate and true, but they supplant it with something even far, far more crazy. You know, and then Mother Nature's got a bag of magic particles, and the particles are bumping, and they'll actually make attacks, and I've heard these attacks before, and here's a couple of them, and I'll dissect them very, very quickly. This is what a proponent of quantum will say. They've actually said, why didn't Nikola Tesla, you know, support quantum? Because it's nonsense, of course. Nikola Tesla referred to the people of quantum and said, these are the people that can think deeply, but they cannot think clearly. And I'll point out to you once again that, you know, nut wards, you know, places where, you know, the cray-cray folk are at, is full of a bunch of deep thinkers, but they can't think clearly. Nikola Tesla referred to these people as deep thinkers who could not think clearly. He said you could actually be a deep thinker and yet be, you know, quite, what's the British slang for it, quite mad. Actually, it's not mad. I forget what the English slang for, not Mad Hatter. Anyway, it escapes me right now. It said that, they said, well, of Nikola Tesla, they actually call him a crank. And, you know, as Nikola Tesla, the countless patents that he has, you know, is a crank. You know, these people have never invented anything. And they said, well, people like Tesla and others, they said if you can't understand it, they declare it to be nonsense. Well, I have all the books of these people that founded quantum. I know the entire history of the term quantum, why it was popularized, how it was popularized, what it's a reference to, and what it's not a reference to. I mean, it is definitionally nonsense. There is nothing in nature you can point to as quantum because quantum is a measure. You know, you can't point to a mile or gram, a meter. These are standards of measure. Smallest unit of discrete energy, i.e. a photon. Here's another one that they'll use all the time. There's a long laundry list, and it's easy to dissect them. They say, quite simply, you need quantum mechanics because past a certain point, okay, classical mechanics doesn't work. Well, classical mechanics does work. Everything in nature is pressure mediation. Human emotions are even pressure mediation. You can take the 4 presumed fields and reduce them down to 2, and those 2 are one thing and one thing only. I've pointed out endlessly in countless videos that magnetism is the dielectric field. Why it's a dielectric field, why its geometry is toroidal, and why the centripetal increasing inertia and acceleration vector of the dielectric is hyperboloidal geometry, and how they're the negative geometry of one another. Gravity is no different than the incorrect thing we call magnetic attraction, is no different than electrostatic cling of your socks sticking together when you pull them out of the, you know, the dryer machine. Black hole is really simple too. It's a field laser. Well, lasers emit coherent light. Well, it's coherent extemporaneously. It is attributionally coherent light, but specifically it's point source light. It's the reason why LEDs are so bad for your eyes, because LEDs are quasi-point source. They're actually halfway between incoherent light from a normal light bulb and laser light. And of course there's a reason why 98% of all lasers are LEDs. You know, black hole is a field laser. It's like, well, what's a black hole emitting? Of course, nothing is emitting light. There's a field disturbance in the case of a laser, but it is a point source object. Well, a black hole is also, too, a point source object, and you look up countless pictures of it online, real pictures, not animations, emitting trillions and trillions of tons of hydrogen. And of course, hydrogen is super high energy light. It's where non-propagation occurs because capacitance threshold has been met. When you actually reach the capacitance threshold of any medium, propagation no longer occurs at the same way. Here you actually have, I humorously call it hard light, but every branch of science can agree that all atoms are compounded hydrogen. In the case of fusion, we take hydrogen and turn it into helium, and helium has different isotopes of helium, then you end up with lithium and on, and of course atomic generation stops once it reaches iron, but that's a matter for another discussion. So hydrogen is super high energy light. All atoms are compounded hydrogen. Well, that makes Mother Nature really simple. She really is that hairy armpit chick with no calculator. Because a lot of people think that the universe is painted in math. Of course, you can quantize things and superimpose math over the phenomena of nature, but Mother Nature doesn't have a calculator, and she certainly doesn't have a digital caliper or a digital slide rule. She doesn't. There is no math in nature. These are, of course, conceptual. Now, there are ratios and there are harmonies, but there's no math. And also, too, I don't confuse arithmetic with math. You should go look up, like the Theology of Arithmetic by Iamblichus, or Mathematics for Understanding Plato and the Pythagoreans by Theon of Smyrna, a really ancient text. But math is not arithmetic. But there are ratios and harmonies, but there's no math in nature. The universe is actually not painted by math, and the superimposition is saying we have ratios and harmonies, which we've attached numbers to, but there is no math in nature. There's only simplex pressure mediation. Capacitance, resistance, permeability, permittivity, centrifugal, centripetal. But this is no different and more complex than saying simplex pressure mediation. Uneven heating of the Earth. Why are there winds at all? Well, the Earth is heated unevenly. You get the dark side, and the dark side after X number of hours becomes lit, and vice versa, and reciprocates back and forth, the movement of winds. Everything is pressure mediation. Everything in the case of fields is pressure mediation. So black hole is a field laser. Makes it really simple. All matter is super high energy light, and all atoms are compounded hydrogen. We can eliminate out gravity. Of course, the phenomena of gravity is real. That's not a matter for debate, but it itself is not a field. It is a vector towards counter space. All so-called gravity phenomena are always vectors directed at counter space, i.e. the erasure of space. Anyway, science and humanity, due to trying to convolute and complicate everything, which Mother Nature is the opposite of, because simplicity and Mother Nature, as I've said, are the exact same term in many ancient languages. We invent things that don't exist, and we think these things are real, kind of like an ignorant person thinks dragons are real, or leprechauns, or unicorns. Of course, they're not real at all. But we all have a mental image of one, and we all carry around the concepts of the same. Well, these academicians, who are not intelligent, actually they are intelligent, many of them, but they're just not wise. And I am certainly not one to confuse knowledge with wisdom. These are people with a head full of facts, but they can't tell you simply what anything is. We rationalize things just like unicorns and leprechauns. Waves, these are things that don't exist. Waves, space, time, shadows, emptiness, chaos, quantum, negative charge, force of what, by what, and upon what. Electrons, protons, virtual photons, which is really very laughable, and quantum loves to reify the idea of virtual photons. By the way, when they say you can't understand it, and using one of the people that try to support quantum, so well, if you can't understand it, you must declare it nonsense. I think that anybody that poo-poos quantum is someone that doesn't understand it. But their very gods, including Feynman and Leonard Susskind and others, all their so-called gods of quantum, I got a quote from every one of them that say flat out, if you think you understand quantum, you absolutely don't understand quantum. In other words, they will freely admit to their benefit that they will tell you flat out that if you think you know quantum, you don't know it at all, because the reason why you can't understand quantum is because it is nonsense. So the very people that will attack you for attacking quantum will fail to point out the fact that the very people that they consider to be the gods of quantum will tell you that it's impossible to understand what quantum is. And it's completely irrational, too, to say past a certain point the classical physics and mechanics and field theory doesn't work. Well, it works at absolutely every level of science. Let me give a couple quotes from Nikola Tesla. Light is a sound wave in the ether. Light cannot be anything else but a longitudinal disturbance in the ether involving alternating rarefactions and compressions. This is from James Clerk Maxwell. The medium of propagation, the ether, must exist. The medium must be predominant thought in our investigations. This is from Treatise on Electricity and Magnetism from James Clerk Maxwell. The gods of field theory never postulated these charge-carrying particles. They don't even think it's the charge. If you listen closely to the irrational, illogical, self-contradictory nonsense that they espouse, they will tell you, what's an electron? Yes, electrons exist as a charge-carrying particle. So the electron now isn't the charge, it's carrying the charge, kind of like a clown car. You get a bunch of clowns in a clown car. So in this case, if you use the clown car, a supposition to them, say, well, in your case, you're actually saying that the electron is a clown car, but the actual charge are a bunch of clowns inside the clown car. Well, this is completely irrational. You can't explain wireless power induction. By the way, all of quantum, this is not my opinion, this is a hardcore fact, is based upon what they think light is. But they have absolutely no idea what light is. They've never defined energy. Sure they have. Energy is the ability to do work. Well, that's descriptive. It's not explicative. And as I've said 1,000 times, descriptions are not explanations. They never defined energy. They've never defined a field. Now you're so smart. What's a field, tattooed monkey? Easy. A field is an ether perturbation modality. Like ice, water, and steam are different modalities of water. All one and the same thing. You can eliminate out gravity. It's not that the phenomenon of gravity doesn't exist, but it's an anti-field if you want to keep it really simple. It's always a vector towards counter space. Electricity is a hybrid of dielectricity and magnetism together. Of course, anything with a transverse component is, of course, a field modality and a force vector necessitatively. Yeah. If it has a transverse modality, that transverse modality is an expression away from counter space. And any expression or vector away from counter space is necessitatively force denotatively. And in the case of electricity, we have the magnetic component of the transverse modality, and this, of course, is the frequency, i.e. the wavelength of light. All of nature can be put into a nutshell. People thought I couldn't do it, but I did it several years ago with that 2-page download, and you could find it in the description below this video, and it's been there for years. Explains absolutely the entire universe in a nutshell. I could stick it and make it even smaller if you like. I can make it 1/4 of 1 page. The one that I have for a download is 2 full pages, with some diagrams that I hand draw, hand sketched out and whatnot. I can make it a lot smaller than that. It's really simple. Measures are not things. Quantum is not a thing you can point to in nature. There's no such thing as a charge-carrying particle called the electron. The person that discovered, same J.J. Thomson, accurately defined what the principle of the so-called electron is. Accurately, he said, it is 1 unit of dielectric induction. You can explain why dielectricity is dendritic. I take a little bit longer to do in this video, but it's very simple. But even some of the simple things actually take a few minutes to define, but that would actually stretch this video out further than I'd like to take it. But I've done it before. Magnetism is a dielectric field. There's no field of gravity or electricity. These are not different things to unify. Everything in nature is already unified. The only reason we think it's not unified is because stupid human beings haven't thought or figured out how to think clearly and rationally and logically. Capacitance, resistance, permeability, permittivity, centrifugal force, centripetal acceleration. All of that can be put into one simple nutshell, and the nutshell would be called pressure mediation. You could explain all fields. You could explain gravity. You can explain Light, you could unify light and matter, as I've done years ago. Unified light and matter. I told people they would discover super high energy light made matter, and about a couple of years after I declared that, it was discovered. Constructive interference between two super high power lasers manufactured matter. Explain a black hole, really simple. It's a supermass with no magnitude. That's really simple, even though people have a little bit of a hard time wrapping their brains around it. It's also, too, the reason why you can say emission in the case of a black hole. Nothing emits light. Yeah? Light's not an emission. It's a disturbance of a medium. Compound circuit disturbance of a medium. You know, the medium of light is the ether. These people think all of quantum, their definition, not mine, all of quantum is based upon our understanding of light. Well, they think light is a wave-particle duality. There are no dualities in nature, and it's not a wave. A wave is not a thing. There's no such thing as a wave. A wave of what? A wave! Wave of what? Wave. Wave of what? It's not a particle. It's not a duality. It's not an emission. It doesn't have a speed. Literally all of quantum, by their own definition, which is based upon our understanding of light, they will tell you flat out, is incorrect because they have absolutely no idea what light is. Tesla told you what light is. He also, too, called radio stations ether whistles. It's kind of humorous, slightly. Nikola Tesla said that radio stations broadcasting were ether whistles. Nothing emits sound. Sure, you're talking right now and emitting sound. I'm not emitting anything. I'm creating a disturbance in the ether. Excuse me. In the case of sound, I'm creating a disturbance in the air. Hello, so sorry about that. The air, of course, composed of oxygen and nitrogen, which is also, too, fundamentally the ether, but that's taking it too far. Nothing emits sound, nothing emits light. Oh, that sounds crazy. Well, I'm not the one that said that. Nikola Tesla did. What, if you think you're smarter than Tesla? Go ahead. That's fine with me. If you ever want to contact me, my information is in the description below. Any donations always warmly welcome. I hope you have a lovely day. Nature is a whole lot more simple than these so-called experts. Well, I have a PhD in quantum theory. Oh, really? Let's have a debate. No, I don't want you to do that. Well, what are you afraid of? Well, you know. Remember, THEURGY, I dare you to go watch that video. I dare you. Just type in Feynman explains magnetism. It's like 7 minutes and 22 seconds. If you can watch that video, just with an open mind, like, yeah, this guy doesn't know anything. This is the god of quantum theory that everybody's looking up to? Yeah, that guy? That guy. Go watch that video. There's 100 copies of it easily on YouTube. Sitting in a high back chair. Go watch it. Don't take my word for it. Thank you so much for watching. Lux Veritas.